Okay, last but not the least, what needs to be done? And without getting into this, you, whoever you may be, the money people, the people who are in charge, the people who make changes. I hope you're listening up. Again, I'm just a lay individual. I'm a nobody. I'm of no significance. But this is a Fiji rugby lover, a lover of the game, a lover of growth, a lover of competitiveness, and a lover of fairness in all systems, whether it's life, sports, governance. This is me providing feedback to what I believe needs to be done to my beloved Fiji, and just for the love of the game and for being able to give back to the people what they truly love about Fiji, and that is beautiful champagne rugby needs to be done for a consistent long period of time. So you, whoever takes care of this and whoever makes the changes, please listen up. This is what needs to be done, starting from one. Now, I thank you and I congratulate you. Welcome aboard the new board of directors. Okay, now again, I'm going to be reading from my notepad. I have got information after information after information. So I'm more than happy to share this. If you want, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to provide you with my red book, my red Bible. But so if I'm looking down, this is why I'm looking at my notes. So yeah, as mentioned, welcome aboard the new board of directors. It's glad to have you. I pray and hope that you will make the changes that we've all been crying out for so long, people both internally and externally from Fiji. So I hope you are the chosen people and the right people that Fiji Rugby have needed for so long, to take care of stabilizing the finances, clearing out the debts. I mean, the malicious, nefarious debts that we have unfortunately incurred. Please try to get that written off or cleared so we can start from a clean slate. Transparent and sustainable financial dealings, please, with players, and just having a very transparent, open mentality. That is where you will instill confidence and trust from all levels, from players to coaching staff to governing bodies to shareholders to sponsors. So I hope you can keep that going. And and above all, no nefarious, no malicious dealings in when you're in position of power. Please don't want to mention. I don't want to mention names, but it's happened and it's been going on for too long. And the world knows, or if not the world, actually, correction, 90%, 99% of the world is asleep. But the 1% who matter, we know. We know what's going on. So please, for the love of the game and for the love of the purest of the people that love the game, let's start taking care of our own. Let's start taking care of the Fijian people. Let's start taking care of the Fijian players, who are the ones that represent our beautiful country. Okay, that's your job. Board of Directors, please continue it. Now, from there, once that's all taken care of, we need to have an aggressive player retention program. Now, what we need to do, first things first, at the end of the day, this makes the world go round. And it's not greed. It's not greed with our players. It's not greed or anything like that. No, it's just we're raised, whether we're indigenous Fijians, whether we're Indo-Fijians or Indian Fijians, whether we're Lawan, whether we're Kailoma, anybody that's associated with Fiji, Fijian culture, Fijian diaspora, we are taught that when we're being raised to take care of your family, and we do things for our family. We do things to take care of our family, to set up our family. So with that in mind, with that in place, can we start offering competitive, transparent contracts to the players of Fiji, whether it's Drua, whether it's national rugby, whether it's grassroots, anybody who's emerging or who's got talent, we need to be transparent. We need to be able to take them under our wing. So can we start doing that? Now, I don't see why. I mean, I've mentioned this. For us to be relying on funding is cruel. It's punish. It's a travesty. It's punishment. So we need to be able to lure or leverage commercial sponsorships, be able to get government backing, and when we've got this in place, we should be able to retain marquee players. We don't want to lose the many marquee players like the Semi Radradras or the Severises or, now Caleb Muntz. There are so many players, and even my favorite hooker, who plays for the Drua, he's about to leave, come on, seriously, can't let this happening. All right, so it's one thing. The other thing is play now, which is we need to do something what a lot of teams don't do, but if we can do this, it will be very good, and that's player welfare and development. I mean, Australian Rugby has it as a whole, ARU, New Zealand Rugby, so NZRU do that. We need to do that, we need to focus on player welfare, which does include their welfare, mental welfare, familial welfare, strength and conditioning, professional development programs, succession planning, we need to do that. So, there needs to be initiatives provided to players for life after rugby, but also life during rugby, because a lot of players, we have a lot of things going on. Our players, we have a lot of things going on that we don't want to share. And Fijians, traditionally, culturally, we don't speak up. We're very quiet. The only time, we speak up is if pressed. So let's not do that. Let's not have our players, being required to be pressed in order for them to open up. No, let's have these development initiatives around them. It's been very fruitful. Sorry, as I scratch my back, it's been very fruitful for other clubs and other countries. Well, we need to do that. So yeah, that needs to be done. Pathways for under 18s to 20s. So, formalize and fund structured programs for this cohort. There's no such thing right now. That needs to be done. So, and this needs to be done because when players come of age or when they're leaving school, they are traditionally poached, by other sporting organisation, by other codes, by other countries. So we need to be able to develop an under 20s, under 18s program, and have it funded, and the infrastructure, the development needs to be there, so our players stay local, they are retained, so we don't lose them, and now when that's happened, when all of these things are happened, we need to start looking at coaching stability, coaching staff stability and specialization in such positions. So for example, forward coaches, we need to have specialist forward coaches, and forward coaches, they specialize in set pieces, one amongst many things, we need to have performance analysis and analytics, and this is to be able to observe and enhance performance capabilities of the team or other teams, zone in on other team weaknesses, and just essentially what you see other big clubs in rugby league, rugby union be doing. They have specialist people in specialist positions there to do a specialist job, and Fiji needs to be able to do that, and above all, discipline focus, so implement specific training and mindset coach, and mindset coaching to impose or to improve consistency. To impose consistency, but to improve that. So, so we need to be, everything that Fiji does needs to be around discipline, because we either have it, but we don't retain it consistently, or if we retain it for consistently, we don't do it for 80 minutes, we do it for 60 minutes, Or if we don't, we just don't, So that needs to be done, And then on the back of that, we need to be able to maintain that for 80 minutes and not lose, not fade out, And and I just want to mention that the season just gone, the so-called distractions that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be settled internally ASAP, because the last thing that needs to happen is always outside noise and outside distractions to be seeping in any team, let alone Fiji. Okay. The upcoming Pacific Nations Cup is very, very important, because obviously, it gives Fiji the opportunity to qualify, but not just that, it allows Fiji to not just qualify for the World Cup, but to be running through set pieces, combinations, and work on their game plan. But amongst all of that, they need to be able to play Tier 1 nations on a regular basis. That needs to be a primary focus, to get more games in with Tier 1 nations. Okay, now talking about long term. So long term, for the success of Fiji and for the success of World Cup and for future World Cups, we need to be... Now, this is an idea of mine that I have actually thought about, and I think would be very, very good. I dare say this has not been created or ever been implemented. So you, again, the people with the money, take note. There needs to be a centralized player management system. So essentially what this is a robust system. So it's like a player management system, okay, that tracks Fijian players worldwide, wherever they may be, tracks them worldwide. And then what this allows the national team and the staff is to monitor the players' fitness, the players' form, the players' availability. And on top of that, on the flip side, it allows this system and this coaching staff to be able to build a relationship with other entities, with other clubs, to be able to then work on release programs. So the benefit of this, it's a quid pro quo. So this system will track players' fitness, form, nutrition, injury, everything. And then that information will be readily made available to their parent club. So, and then that club can take that information and work on that and do as they please. But then at the same time, that club will feel very, very appreciative to the national team, to Fiji Rugby, because of this program, that they'll be able to, or this data analytics, or this management system to be able to readily make their players available for international duty. So it's quid pro quo, as we say in legal terms. Is you scratch my back, I scratch your back. It's very, very good. It will be very, very handy, because again, this needs to be created because Fiji has got this not so much of a luxury, and that is that we have got traditionally such good, amazing, talented players, but they tend to be scattered worldwide, and I don't think we've ever had a team that's full strength, play any game full strength against any Tier 1 side, and that is embarrassing. I don't think we've ever had that. So it's about time we have that. Now, this is something that doesn't happen, and it needs to be done as well, and that is invest in domestic club rugby. So reinvesting and making local domestic rugby professional. The domestic club competition in Fiji will create a wider pool of talent that is better equipped for the rigors of Super Rugby and International Rugby. So again, we need to reinvest in club rugby, and that means infrastructure, competitiveness, awards, everything from top to bottom. Now, high performance from grassroots. So what this will enable, the development of clear, well-funded, and continuously monitor high performance pathway from age grade rugby through to Drua and Flying Fijians. So something what these bigger nations do, and that's Australia and New Zealand, they have all of these pathways. Well, that needs to be done. So this then, in turn, will then enable the improvement of coaching, education, and accreditation for this. Strength and conditioning programs for young players, so their young bodies are invested in. Nutritional guidance, because nutrition is a very big thing to maintain and nurture this raw talent. And talent identification across the islands. Now, I need to point out, politically, and it's a cultural thing, I believe, Indian Fijians, they play soccer. And Indigenous Fijians, they tend to play rugby. As well as that, Indigenous Fijians play soccer as well. But Indian Fijians do not get a look in or a consideration, or they are scared or feared away from playing rugby. Yeah, and I guess it's a DNA thing or something, but I dare say, and this is me speculating, but there would be an Indian Fijian somewhere in Fiji who loves rugby and who plays rugby with Indigenous Fijians. Hell, when I was in my prime, I used to play rugby with Pacific Islanders, people twice as my age. I love rugby. I love rugby league more than I love rugby union. And I mix it up with the big people. I got ostracized. What's an Indian playing rugby? But you know what? I held my own. And I dare say there would be some Indian Fijians somewhere in Fiji who are just like me. So they need to be considered. We need to rewrite this political book, and this political ideology. There's no need and there's no room for that. We are all one. We are all Fijians. So I'd love to see some Indian Fijians, another Junior Khan or the Khan last name, to be representing Fiji in rugby. Because what we do bring, and it is a given thing, is that Indians tend to have that IQ. So if you have this IQ Indian who plays rugby, playing amongst Fijians, Indigenous Fijians, that can fill in this Indian Fijian might be able to fill in the gap of intelligence in-game management that hasn't been there before. So this is something that needs to be considered. So yeah, again, talent identification should not be just limited to Indigenous Fijians and must include all Fijians. And that does include Indian Fijians. This political stance needs to be eradicated. Okay, everybody should have an opportunity to be able to play rugby in Fiji, whether it's Indian or Fijian. As long as you can handle the game, you can handle the rigors, you should be able to play. Now, moving on to the next thing, and that's strategic friendlies. So again, I've got a lot of notes, but again, there needs to be strategic games allocated with tier 1 nations, so that's a given. Optimizing player release windows, so work closely with World Rugby and overseas clubs to ensure a sufficient number of top-line players are readily made available to be able to enter into test camps and into the test team core and foundation, and this will come about when the player management system would be created. So, yep, that needs to be done. Maintain commercial relationships. Okay, I don't understand how the hell we have left one of the biggest sporting names, branding names in Nike, and have gone to Umbra as a manufacturer of kits. Now, what has happened there? I don't know. Whether Nike wanted more money, or I don't know what's happened there. But how it's happened, what has happened, how it did happen, how we've allowed for it to happen, is a crime in itself. Now, why do I say that? You might be thinking, it's only just Nike, they're manufacturers. No, Fijians, we are very, very, we're very culturally invested. We are very humbled by appreciation of big things. So when Nike became a manufacturer for our apparel of team kits, we as a nation, as Fijian people, we were taken back. We were so in awe of that. It was like something of a major accomplishment. So, and to have lost Nike as a manufacturer is, I dare say, hasn't gone well. It hasn't gone down well. We need to keep these close relationships and prosper and grow from that. So we can't have this happening. We can't let this repeat itself. We need to get big manufacturers and big brands like Nike back on board. So this needs to be reversed. It needs to come back. Again, you with the money need to make this happen. Now, we need to retain top line players. So, I've got so many players here. Again, if you want me to share the names, I can share with you. I'm already up to 20 minutes and this is going to be a long video. So, there's a lot of players here that I'm saying that, needs to be retained, and it's just, and again, my favorite player, he needs to be brought back amongst many players is Tavita Ikanavere. He needs to be back, right? I have high respect for him, right? And amongst the other former Drua players and current players, we need to keep them. But on top of that, we need to fast track very high potential gifted players from the Drua system, the domestic competitions, and do not forget the Fiji Warrior system as well. They need to be handpicked. They need to be taken. They need to be taken under our wing before other teams and codes poach them. Okay, now, leading to the World Cup, upcoming World Cup and future World Cups, there needs to be a structured coaching and conditioning blocks. So this means that pre-season, during season and off season, these structured coaching and conditioning coaching schemes, programs need to be in place for particular players, particular positions, and it needs to be sustained and maintained. Now, continuity of coaching and coaching staff. So again, this enables stability and continuity. Now, I'm sorry, but I have to say what I believe, and that is, and amongst all of that, is that Glenn Jackson needs to go. I suspect that the original thinking would have been that, it's good to get a former coach in, former referee, and former referees coach in as a coach for the Drua, because then you'd be able to tap into the psychic or the mentality of a ref. Well, yeah, potentially there could have been some upsides in that, but I dare say, and you know what, if I was ever to see Glenn knows who I am. I've met him before. No, he's just, I'm sure he's a great person in his own right and whatnot, but he just does not have the characteristics or the mentality or the idiosyncrasies of what Fiji rugby needs. We need a Steve Hansen, we need a Eddie Jones, we need a Stephen Larkin. We are not an Ian Foster, no offense, but yeah, we need one of these who's who know the rugby acumen. Not, they don't necessarily need to know the referee, because with the rugby acumen they know what matters, and they've got the strategic game plan, which referees don't. So Glenn Jackson, thank you, but I bid you farewell. Me personally, I would like to bid you farewell. Now, whether you people who matter take note is another question. Right, now, moving on, targeted skill development. So imposing and stabilizing the more core skills, and when I say imposing, I mean imposing strict drill sessions into the non-negotiable core skills, and that is the lineouts, set pieces, set piece accuracy, scrum solidity, line out options, tactical kicking from hand, and disciplined defensive systems. These are non-negotiables, and these need to be imposed upon by coaching staff. It is a non-negotiable. It needs to be second nature in the head. That's how you have a well-drilled team. Now, mental preparation for high pressure moments. Now, Fiji Rugby, I don't think they've ever had this, whether it's Fiji Rugby or the Drua, I don't think they've ever had this. So, this is where a sports psychologist will be very handy, either from the University of South Pacific, because the individuals from them are already in there, in the culture, but I dare say to be able to get a prominent sports psychologist, to be able to invest in that would be very, very handy. If you can find a Fijian sports psychologist, oh my God, you've just hit the jackpot. Because it is very important, because this is where the language of high pressure, of quick reflex, of under pressure moments, we can handle that. Fiji Rugby players will be able to handle that a lot better. They can't handle it right now, and they do, and it's once in a blue moon. So by having a sports psychologist there, taps into the mentality of players. I've always been a firm believer that any sport, it's more mental than it is physical, because yes, physicality is very, very important, but if you're a very intelligent player, how to approach the game without getting injured, and you can do things that not even the biggest or the most powerful players can't do, because you play with your wits. So, it's a mental thing. So to be able to tap into the mentality, that would be very handy. So sports psychologists would be very handy. And then also by having this enhances IQ of players, certain players in certain positions. Utilize the Nations Championship. So with the introduction of the new Nations Championship by World Rugby, it's only going to be advantageous and very, very valuable. So to be able to take advantage of that would be in Fiji's best interest. Because you'll be exposed to top line teams. So not just take it for its experience, but to actually work off that. And this is where a lot of sports analytics, game analytics, Fiji Rugby and Drua analytics will be very handy to have that, because you can watch and view and study, and you can prepare from these games. Strategic scouting and player communication. So again, this comes back to the player management system that I have mentioned previously. So by doing this, you keep in contact with players worldwide, who are Fijian players worldwide, who are currently in form, who are playing well for their respective clubs or divisions. Keep a line of communication with them. And how do you do that? Traditionally just over the phone, or if this such management system can be created, to be able to transform that into an app. So, it's like, you're taking care of your own, and you're keeping line of communication open with them. Shows them that you care, and Fijian players love that. We gravitate and we grow from that. And then from there, you can share their role and the vision of 2027 and major games and Rugby World Cup. And then you can get their buy-in from that. So yeah, that's something that's very important to look at. And then last but not the least, play more games in Australia, in New Zealand. Look for every opportunity. The World Cup is in Australia, the upcoming World Cup. So, play as many games in Australia as possible in various locations. Allows the team to acclimatise, and allows the team to work on their game plan and everything, So, you'd be silly not to play more games in big nations like Australia and New Zealand. So the more the better. So that's me. That's my That's my notes. That's my vision. That's my ideas. Apologies for the long video, but with these ideas, it was only best that I did take a bit of time. But I mean, I hope you who matters with this and matters with the people that make the changes where they need to be made. I hope you've listened in, you've dialed in, because as I said, from a Fijian who loves the game of rugby, who's played the game of rugby, it's only about time that all of these developments and this growth is reinvested back into the game of Fiji, because we need to be a big prominent player in world rugby. We've been too much of a sleeping beast. It's time for us to wake up. This is Junior. Thank you, and hope to see you all again soon. See ya. Mode.